All right, what I had planned to show you in the previous video was what I'm about to show you now, and that is still working with path parameters like we did before, and now we're going to throw a little JSON into that. So I'll show how to use a static route, then how to use a dynamic route, and we're going to show some JSON encoding and also some other things that we can do with the JSON annotations like that. Again, we'll be using SBT because it makes life simpler. We can look at build.sbt. The only difference is I'm now using this Alvin 104 and path params and JSON. So this is Alvin 104 path params and JSON. So we can scroll down here. What I'm doing here is I'm creating a case class named greeting. It has this one parameter named message and its type is string. Then I'm using the Scala3 derives keyword right here, and I'm saying I want to derive the JSON encoder, and this comes from the ZIO JSON package. And let me scroll up here. And now you can see that I am importing the ZIO.json package there. So that's where JSON encoder comes from. So in the comments, I described this code a little bit. So again, that's a case class with automatic JSON encoding. And that's because I'm deriving the encoder. There's also a decoder that I don't show in this example, but I'll show in one of the upcoming examples. So it automatically generates the JSON encoder for this greeting case class. And the JSON encoder type class comes from ZIO HTTP. I don't think that's 100% accurate. I think what I'm doing here is I'm including ZIO HTTP here, but I'm also including ZIO JSON is currently a separate project. So I think that is coming from there. So this part right here is not 100% accurate. I tend to think of ZIO JSON as being part of ZIO HTTP. So I'll leave that there, but that's not 1,000% accurate. Let me just say that way. And what this derives JSON encoder does for us, it actually generates some code for you. And the code that it generates lets the greeting class be automatically serialized to JSON format. Have a note, now you can see the toJSON call below here. So what goes on here is now when you create an instance of a greeting, there's actually a toJSON method that's available on a greeting type. So you can see in this code up here, I haven't written any sort of toJSON method, but somehow or another it's magically available here. And that's what the derives JSON encoder does for us, is it generates code. So this toJSON method is now available on a greeting instance like that. And I'll come back to this other comment here in just a few moments. So everything here, I believe, is the same as before, except for that format request. This code here, the run value is the same. The server configuration looks like that's the same. We'll come back to that in just a minute. The only thing important I want to look at first is this get request on the hello path right there. So let me save that and let's run that. And all I want to do is call that hello one right there. Okay, and there is our JSON. So you can see what that is doing is it's giving us the JSON. The key over here is message, which is this parameter name right here. And then the value is the string that I give it right here. And I think that's pretty cool. And that is coming from that code right there. And I should be clear that the response.json is coming in over here when I add the -i option here. That gives you the application JSON value right there for the content type. That's what the response.json does right there, is it gives you this. Okay, that's the first example. The second example uses the dynamic path parameter, which I showed previously. So again, we have /hello, and then I'm expecting a string as the next value here. So we could say hello friend or something like that. And you saw some output up here. I'll come back to that in just a moment. The important part here is that we get the message and it says hello friend. So again, that's coming from the greeting, and then we have the hello and then the name variable right there. And then we're calling toJSON on that. So this part here creates a new greeting instance, and then we call toJSON on that, and that's what gives us this JSON text right there like that JSON string there. The other thing I'm doing here, I got into some coding and I started having some problems where I needed to debug a request that's coming in. So I thought I'd put that in here as well. So I wrote this function right here, and you can find it on my website for formatting a request. I've also been asked to make this a pull request, and I will at some point once I have some better information. There was something here I didn't finish up yet that I didn't want to make it a formal pull request. But once I fix that, I will do that. And then this function, or a function with a different name, will become available on the request object, so you don't have to go through everything I did. But anyway, I wanted to debug a request that was coming in. So the request is coming in here, and I wanted to debug that. So I created that format function, and you could see that the method is get. The path is /hello/friend. Then I have header information here, the URL, that actually should be URI, query parameters, and a remote address. So for now, I will just say that if you ever need to debug a request, you can use this code that, again, you can find on my website. But the only thing it does, it takes a request in, and then I call all these different methods on it. And again, that's called request URL. I guess that's why you use URL there. But to me, that is a URI and not a URL. But the key for this lesson is if you ever wanted to see the formatted version of request, you could see what that looks like over there. And then the other thing I wanted to look at over here, since we're primarily looking at JSON information, do I have all that code I need there? I was thinking that what I would do is comment that out, because I wanted to show these JSON annotations right here, and I think that's still right. Let me take a look at that. So what I'm doing in this code is I'm still creating a greeting case class, just like before, where I have a message parameter that's a string. I'm still deriving the JSON encoder, but what I'm saying in this code right here is that I want the field to have a different name over here. So right now you can see that it has the name message, but when you use this JSON field annotation here, you can change this name that shows up over here. And that's all that I'm doing in this new version of greeting. So let me save that, stop that, run it again. Sorry about that. I had a little problem with my formatting over here. Everything was indented a little bit too much. So I fixed that, and now I have that up and running. Everything's the same over here, and now when I call that hello friend, now we will see that instead of message right there, we have greeting message. And again, that comes from this setting right here, that JSON field setting right there. The note that I have up here about JSON exclude is that if you had multiple parameters over here, you could say, well, I want to exclude one. And I'm not going to take care of this all the way, but that would be like if you had something like that. I could say JSON exclude, and this would be some other field over here. It could be an int or whatever it is. And this is just saying that I want to exclude this from the output over here. So I want it as a field in my greeting case class. I want a second parameter here, but I don't want to include that in the JSON output. So that's where the JSON exclude would come from. But I'm not going to show that. I will leave that as an exercise for the reader. And I think that was all I was going to show in this video. Let me double check all that. And a date, that's the JSON field. Annotation right there and everything else. And we can take a look at this documentation page. So let me grab that over here. So I showed how to use JSON field right there. And then I think they show the other, JSON member names. So JSON member names, they have popular transformations that are already provided. They have kebab case, like shish kebab, snake case, Pascal case, and camel case. So then they will show that down here. So if you had this example JSON with most fields that are snake case and one is kebab case. So that's the kebab case right there. Everything else is snake case. Then they have the target case class. So they say all the JSON members should be snake case except for this one. And actually they override that with the JSON field as I showed in my example over here. Then as I scroll down, they note that it's possible to change the type hint that is used to discriminate case classes with JSON hint. Then they note that the following annotations change the expected JSON of a fruit family. So we start off with a sealed trait named fruit in this example. Then they have a case class named banana that extends fruit. And then they have a case class named apple that extends fruit. And as I scroll down, you can see that if we take a look at the banana one has a field named curvature. It's saying that we want to call that bendiness, but then it also offers a hint right here. So when we start off, we say, well, initially we had a banana with curvature of 0.5. That's a curvature right there. Then it's saying now what you're going to have when you go to JSON is you're going to have bendiness here instead of curvature, which is right there. And then wrapped around that, you're going to have this other version of banana or bananae right there as that hint. And if we scroll down a little bit further, then you can see the same thing for the apple case class, is that we start off with poison as a Boolean, and they show that here and here, poison is false. But after you add in the JSON field of bad, you see that right there. And then we have that word there as a hint there. And then if I scroll down through more examples, you can see that we could use this annotation on a sealed class and so on. But I'm not going to get into all of these examples. I will mention that when you're decoding a JSON string into a value, you can use this JSON no extra fields value. So this one, actually, let me back up. Watermelon has one field here, which is pips, which is an int. So this one will work, and you'll see that you get an either value, and that works properly. When you try to decode one that has pips, but then also another field, and you have this annotation, now you're going to get a left, and then you're going to get this error message right there. So that's what that one does right there. And then there are a few more examples down there. So I'm not going to get into all those. I just wanted to show you a starter. So you can see the URL here if you want to come visit this page for more information. So that has been a quick look at using JSON with ZIO HTTP. And we're going to see more examples of this as we go along. So I just want to give you a few simple examples with our greeting type right here. And then things will get a little more complex as we go along. But this gives you the idea of what you do is you create a case class. You can optionally annotate the field like that. You derive a JSON encoder in this example because we are encoding. And then when you create a greeting like this, what that derives part does is it generates some code for you so that you can now call a toJSON method, which is generated for you, which I've shown here and down here.